The Helldivers 2 Heart of Democracy update is dropped, and a resurgence of gamers returning to serve democracy once more, and a new mission to protect Super Earth from the Illuminate. But is this update enough to keep gamers for the long haul? In this video, I will give the good, the bad, and answer this question in my final verdict. Let's dive into it. And let's start off with the good. And I have to say, I really like the build up to this Heart of Democracy update. They dropped this kind of pre-update, this patch 01.003, which showed the Illuminate breaking through Super Earth's defenses and an invasion becoming imminent. And a couple things that really stood out to me. First off, always enjoy getting new enemies. They introduced three: the Stingray, the Crescent Overseer, and the Flesh Mob. And boy, the Stingray is a pain in the ass. They could shoot you from above. The Flesh Mob can kind of hit you with some barrages from a distance. And the Flesh Mob, my goodness, these absolute brutes throwing their bodies at you, sending you flying. It's always good to get these kind of new enemies to spice things up a little bit, because I felt the Illuminate, even though they were pretty strong, didn't have a ton of differentiating enemies. And definitely these enemies were a refreshing addition. But the star of the show of kind of this Heart of Democracy update, which was really two updates in one, is the new weapon customization. I think this is a huge hit. I think the potential of this is great. Now they allow you to tweak around your different primary weapons, changing magazines, muzzles, scopes, underbarrels, which will change the statistics of your weapon. There's about 3 to 6 different attachments per group, and it allows you to create custom loadouts for your primary and secondary weapons. To me, this is a huge asset. I always felt with playing Helldivers 2, they really limited you with your primary weapon, and depending on who you're facing, it really determined if you can use one primary weapon versus another. This gives you now more choice, which I think is a huge benefit. It can also help us maneuver the different weapon balancing issues that we've seen from Helldivers since its launch. It's always an interesting dance where the devs were a little heavy-handed when it came to weapon balancing and enemy balancing. And there were certain scenarios where they made certain weapons unusable. With the ability to customize some of your primary weapons, it allows you to tweak things to fit a certain scenario, which to me this game needed in a bad way. Finally, let's talk about that Super Earth missions. What I like so far is the aesthetics of Super Earth. Dropping down into these large cities with some local soldiers that can help you and civilians running around, and they actually punish you at the end of missions if your civilians are killed throughout. They did create a pretty good feel of Super Earth being invaded, and so I'll give kudos for them on the mission aesthetics. And even though the mission designs aren't super different, these X factors of civilians with some local support, I think was a nice mix that they added here. What is your favorite part of Helldivers 2 Heart of Democracy update? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, make sure to hit that thumbs up if you liked the video so far. Over 90% of you watching right now is not a subscriber of this channel. Hit that sub button to become part of the Marsman crew and help democracy. And now back to the video. But with the good, we do have to talk about the bad. And unfortunately, I talked about my love for the aesthetics of Super Earth and the weapon customization, but both things are just starting points. They're not super in-depth. And let's start with Super Earth. You really, in this update so far, and I know it just dropped, you can only land in 2 spots. And that wouldn't bother me as much, except for the fact that both spots are pretty indistinguishable from each other. I really wish that there was some differentiating factors between the two, but both come off as large cities, or depending on the mission, it's defending a certain area. And I really wish, depending on where you landed on Super Earth, there was vast difference in aesthetics, or some new mission design. And unfortunately, so far, out of the gate, we don't get that. I also want to talk about the Western customization, which to me is the star of these updates. They're also pretty limited. Not every primary weapon can be customized, and I mentioned 3 to 6 attachments per group. Not super in-depth. The scopes don't really change much, and so a really nice system being introduced, but not super robust out of the gate. So these two assets who could be really strong, the Super Earth missions and the weapon customizations, is a good start, but how valuable they will be will depend on how robust they become and how quickly the devs can keep pumping in content. Overall, I thought this update showed positives and negatives. Finally landing on Super Earth with an invading army had a really good feel to it. I love that they had local soldiers that could help you, civilians that could get in the way, and being in these large cities set up a pretty darn good environment. Weapon customization was a much needed system, and I think it gives players more of a choice now on how to attack certain missions depending on what enemies you're facing. However, with these new missions added and the weapon customizations sounding like a great idea, at the start of this update, they are pretty shallow. There's not a ton there. I think this update has created a nice little spark again for Helldivers 2. You see that with the Steam numbers, and according to the devs, there's over 2 million players playing this game per week. week. However, like we've seen with most live service games, including this one, things can quickly fade if these cool ideas continue to be shallow and not built with some depth. And for the sake of Super Earth, I hope it does. Thank you everyone for watching. If you haven't done so yet, hit that thumbs up and subscribe to help support the channel. And think about becoming a member for some premium perks. This is Frank from Marsman Gaming, signing off. Game on.